They say there are towns you can only find in your dreams. Places so vivid, you wake up certain they're real. But what if one of them is? What if the streets, the faces, the strange clock tower you keep seeing, are all waiting for you to return? People who stumble upon this town vanish, only to reappear years later, changed. Tonight, you'll hear the story of Ethan Hart, a man who thought he was just visiting a place from his dreams until the town claimed him as one of its own. Part 1. The first return. The bus driver didn't remember the name of the town. "That's the last stop for me," he muttered, pulling the brake lever with a hiss. "You walk from here. Roads don't go further in." Ethan Hart stepped out into the gray drizzle, his boots crunching against wet gravel. The map on his phone showed nothing, just a dead-end road swallowed by static pixels. But he knew where to go. He had been here before. Not in person, no, but in dreams. Vivid, two real dreams that came every night for the past 2 weeks. Dreams of narrow streets lined with crooked lampposts, of an old clock tower that never struck the same hour twice, and of faces he almost recognized but couldn't name. He told himself it was curiosity that brought him, but deep down, he knew it was something heavier, a pull, an invitation. The mist clung to his jacket as he walked, swallowing sound. And then, like a curtain lifting, the town appeared. It was exactly as he had dreamed it. Cobblestone streets slick with rain, 2-story brick buildings with peeling signs, shop windows covered in dust. A faint orange glow bled from behind curtains, though he couldn't see anyone inside. The air smelled faintly of burned paper and something sweet, like overripe fruit. The quiet was unsettling. Even small towns had some hum of life. A distant engine, a barking dog. Here, nothing. A shiver crawled over his skin. He wandered deeper, passing a bakery whose shelves were still full of bread, untouched and days old. A hair salon with scissors and combs neatly lined up as if the barber had just stepped away. Every building was ready for people, but empty. Or maybe, not empty. Ethan felt at first as a prickling at the back of his neck. He turned. Across the street, a figure stood under a lamppost. A woman, maybe, though her outline blurred in the mist. She didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, watching. When Ethan blinked, she was gone. His pulse quickened. He told himself it was his imagination. Dreams had a way of clinging to waking life, and maybe he was just projecting. That's when he saw it. On a bulletin board outside what looked like a post office, there was a paper curling in the damp air. He stepped closer. It was a missing persons poster. The photo was grainy but clear enough to see the face, his face. Same jawline, same scar near the eyebrow, same jacket he was wearing right now. And below the picture, in bold, smeared letters, returned. Ethan's own face staring back at him from the poster, with the word returned. But he's never been here before, right? Part 2. The ones who remember. Ethan tore the paper from the board. The damp edges crumpled in his hand, but the photo didn't change. His own eyes stared back, vacant, like they'd been taken without him knowing. He scanned the rest of the board. Dozens of other posters clung to it. Some old, the paper yellowed and curling, others fresher, ink still bleeding from the rain. Different faces, different names, but beneath every one, the same single word, returned. A cold weight settled in his stomach. Not many take theirs down, a voice said. Ethan spun. An old man stood in the doorway of the post office. His frame was wiry, shoulders hunched beneath a wool coat that looked decades old. His eyes, though, were sharp, too sharp. "What is this?" Ethan asked, holding up the paper. The man tilted his head. "Proof you've come home. I've never been here before." The old man's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Everyone says that. The first time they wake. Ethan stepped closer. "You know me?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back into the shadows of the post office. Best not to wander after sundown. The dream's thin at night. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, the door swung shut. He stood there, staring at the peeling green paint, when a faint sound broke the stillness. Footsteps, deliberate and slow, somewhere behind him. He turned. A woman stood halfway down the street, her hair black and wet with mist, her dress the deep green of moss. She was smiling, not warmly, but like she knew something. "You came back," she said softly, as if speaking to herself. "I've never. You've been here before." She stepped closer, her shoes silent on the slick cobblestones. "We all have." The town dreams of us until we return. Ethan's skin prickled. What does that mean? Her eyes flicked toward the street behind him, as if checking for someone else. You'll remember soon. Everyone does. Before he could press her, a dull, rhythmic sound echoed through the fog, like a heavy bell, but offbeat, wrong. The woman's face drained of expression. They're calling roll, she whispered. You should go inside. She turned and slipped into an alley before he could ask another question. The bell kept ringing, uneven, pulling at something deep in his chest. Against his better judgment, he followed the sound, weaving through narrow streets until he reached a small, weathered door with strange, circular symbols carved into it. Symbols he recognized from his dreams. He reached out. The handle was ice-cold under his palm. The moment he turned it, the bell stopped. And from the other side of the door, something knocked back. The strange door from his dreams is real, and something inside just knocked an answer. Part 3. The pages that knew the knock was slow, measured, almost polite. Ethan's first instinct was to step back, but the deeper instinct, the one that had dragged him into this place, told him to go inside. The door groaned open. Dust swirled in a beam of gray light cutting through the gloom. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of old paper and damp wood. The space stretched wider than the building had any right to, row after row of shelves, sagging under the weight of forgotten books. He stepped in. The door shut quietly behind him, without his touch. The place was silent except for the faint, irregular drip of water somewhere deep inside. Ethan moved between the shelves, trailing his hand along the spines, all unlabeled, bound in faded cloth. One book sat alone on a small table in the center of the room. It was open. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, but the words stopped him cold. Ethan Hart enters the library. His fingers brush the spines as he walks. He sees the book. His breath caught. The ink was still wet. Slowly, he turned the page. He reads these words and feels watched. Ethan froze. Somewhere behind him, floorboards creaked. He didn't turn. His eyes dropped to the next line. He is not alone. His pulse pounded. Who's there? He called. Silence. Then, a whisper. Too close. Too low to make out. He spun around. The aisle stretched empty. Turning back, his eyes caught something in the margin of the page. Smaller handwriting, jagged, rushed. Don't turn the next page. Every instinct screamed at him to obey. But his hand moved anyway, almost as if it wasn't his own. The next page held only one sentence. They're already behind you. A cold breath touched the back of his neck. Ethan whipped around and caught a glimpse of a figure disappearing behind a shelf. Not thinking, he chased it. The shelves seemed to shift as he moved, twisting the aisles into unfamiliar shapes. When he finally reached the end of a row, he stopped short. The figure was gone. But in front of him stood the old man from the post office. Only now, his sharp eyes were wide, almost panicked. You shouldn't have read that far, the man said. Now it'll start again. Before Ethan could ask, the room around him flickered. The shelves, the dust, the old man. And he was suddenly back on the street outside. The library door was gone. And in his hand, the book remained. The library has vanished, but Ethan still holds the book that writes his every move. Part 4. The reset. The book felt heavier than it should have, as if each page carried a weight beyond paper. Ethan flipped through it, heart racing. Every line described what he had just done. Leaving the library, standing in the street, looking around. The words appeared even as his eyes moved over them, as if the book were seconds ahead of his reality. One entry stopped him cold. He doesn't notice the sun is in the same place as yesterday. He looked up. The sky was the same flat gray it had been when he first arrived, same smudge of sun behind the clouds, same mist rolling down the street. But the bakery that had been empty hours ago was now lit from within. The smell of warm bread drifted out, fresh this time, not stale. He stepped inside. A woman in a flour-dusted apron turned to greet him. "Morning," she said, cheerful and easy, as if she'd seen him 100 times before. "Morning? It's—" Ethan glanced at his watch. It read 8:14 a.m. The last time he'd checked, it had been late afternoon. "Everything all right?" she asked. "I was here earlier," he said. "This place was shut down." The woman's smile faltered. "No, dear. We've been open every day since you came back." He froze. "Since I came back?" Her gaze dropped to his jacket. as if something about it confirmed a thought she wasn't sure she should voice. "You're one of the returns, aren't you?" Before he could answer, a deep bell tolled outside. The sound rolled through him, the same offbeat, wrong chime he'd heard before, but this time, the moment it rang, the bakery's windows flashed white. And then, he was standing back on the wet cobblestones, outside the bakery, hand on the door handle. He yanked it open, but now it was dark again, shelves bare, bread stale. Ethan stumbled back, chest tight. He flipped to the last page in the book. The handwriting was there, waiting for him. He realizes it's not the town that repeats. It's him. A hand landed on his shoulder. He spun to see the woman from before, the one in the green dress. Her expression sharper now, urgent. "You've looped 3 times already," she said. "Any more, and you won't get out." "How do I stop it?" he demanded. "You can't," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Not unless you finish the dream." Before he could ask what that meant, she pressed something into his hand, a brass key, cold as ice, and vanished into the mist. Ethan looked down at the key. Its teeth matched the carved shapes on the dream door he'd opened before. From somewhere deep in the fog, the bell began again. Ethan holds the key to the dream door, and the next chime might trap him for good. Part 5. The final dream. The bell's uneven chime throbbed through the mist like a heartbeat. Ethan gripped the brass key, his breath clouding in the cold air. The street was empty now, no townsfolk, no flicker of lamplight behind curtains. Only the long, silent rows of buildings leaning inward, as if waiting for him. He didn't have to search for the dream door. It was just there, at the end of the street, exactly where it had been in his sleep. The carved circles in its wood pulsed faintly, like light seeping from somewhere far behind it. His hand shook as he slid the key into the lock. It turned without resistance. The door opened. On the other side was not another street, but a vast, dim hall. The air smelled of candle wax and rain-soaked earth. In the center, a long wooden table stretched into the shadows, lined with chairs. Every chair was occupied. They weren't moving, but they weren't statues either. Pale figures, heads bowed, their faces hidden beneath hoods. At the far end of the table, a single chair was empty. Ethan took a step forward, and the hooded heads lifted in unison. He felt their gazes like pressure against his chest. A voice, not from any mouth, but from all of them, rolled through the air. "Welcome back, Ethan Hart. The dream is ready." He tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. The voice continued. "You left once. You cannot leave again without feeding it." "What do you want from me?" he managed to say. Silence. Then, from the shadows, the woman in the green dress stepped forward. No longer soft-eyed. She looked almost regal, a different presence entirely. "We all dreamed of this town," she said. "We all woke inside it. And when the dream called us back, we took our seats. Now it calls for you." She gestured to the empty chair. Ethan's pulse hammered. "And if I don't?" The hooded figures leaned forward in perfect unison, the air growing colder. She smiled faintly. "Then you'll keep waking up here, over and over, until you forget you ever wanted to leave." He glanced at the door, but it was gone. Only unbroken wall stood where it had been. The book in his hand fluttered open on its own. A fresh line bled into the page. Ethan Hart sits. His muscles tensed, his body moving without permission toward the chair. "No." He gripped the table edge, fighting it. The ink on the page blurred, then reformed into new words. "Or he runs." The hall split in two, one path leading to the chair, one into a narrow passage at the back. He ran. The figures did not follow. The passage stretched on endlessly until a door appeared ahead. He burst through it, and found himself in his own apartment. Rain tapped against the window. His phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for visiting. We'll dream of you soon." Ethan's heart pounded. He glanced out the window. Across the street, beneath a lamppost, the woman in the green dress was standing in the rain. Smiling. He escaped, or thinks he did. But the town can still reach him from anywhere, even his waking life.